Welcome back to the Rundown. Now, Israel lost one of its strongest Democratic supporters in Congress when Representative Eliot Engel lost his primary race to progressive Jamal Bowman. Now, Engel's replacement in the influential position of chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee is another New Yorker, Gregory Meeks, who carries a bona fide pro-Israel bent, but intends to establish his own way of doing business when it comes to the Middle East. Our senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim sat down with Meeks for this exclusive one-on-one interview. Let's listen.
Very pleased to be joined by the incoming chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Representative Gregory Meeks of New York. First off, congratulations are in order. Product of East Harlem and grew up in a housing project, now ascending to the chairmanship of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. It's got to be a big moment for you personally.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it is. It just shows the greatness of the democracy that we have in the United States of America. As you correctly stated, an individual that grew up in public housing, whose parents migrated from the South, did not have much money. Now to be chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee is indeed an honor and a privilege, as well as a deep and important responsibility.
Let's get right into it. You've listed amongst your priorities as chairman Caribbean, Central and South America, Africa, Asia. Didn't specifically mention the Middle East. It doesn't mean it's not part of the equation. Where does the Middle East line up in terms of your priorities as chairman?
Well, the Middle East, of course, is important. I mentioned the others just because they had hardly or rarely had been mentioned, in the past. And I just thought that it was important that we're going to push those things up. But clearly, the Middle East is of deep concern and something that the committee will work with, and the House of Representatives will have to work and try to work so that we could forge a true peace in the Middle East, would help us all. And so we'll definitely be focused on the Middle East and trying to make sure that we get, some progress there.
There is a rapidly changing Middle East here, and you came out with the signing of the Abraham Accords and said it marked a milestone in the region. There are others within the Democratic Party who have been saying for a long time that peace with the Arab world wouldn't come before peace with the Palestinians, and even still have kind of pushed off the recent developments as ho-hum, it happened, but it's not a big deal. How can Democrats at this point with the incoming Biden administration leverage the developments in the Middle East in terms of normalization to America's advantage and to the advantage of its allies?
Well, I think that dialogue and conversation, for me, for a long time, I always wondered why the Arab states did not acknowledge Israel's right to exist and try to have diplomatic relationships with Israel. That then, I think, emboldened the Palestinians not to come to the table so that we can really have a dialogue with regards to a two-state solution. With the Arab nations starting to come together with the Abrahamic Accords, that makes a tremendous difference. And it is my hope that they then will also sit down with the Palestinians and say, you've got to now come to the negotiating table. I think that is the way that we finally get to a true peace in the Middle East, where we have a two-state solution. We have diplomatic relations between the nations in the Middle East, where they are trading with one another and helping one another, as opposed to having the kinds of wars and fights and attacks that we're having right now.
Mr. Chairman, I want to give you an opportunity to clarify some things that you said over the summer with regards to aid to Israel. You'd said, as you were vying for the chairmanship, you said that you would not take the leveraging of U.S. aid off the table in terms of whether Israel would annex or apply sovereignty, depending on your point of view, to lands in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. Where exactly do you stand on that particular issue?
The MOU, the understanding, the money, the agreement that the Obama administration put as far as defense of Israel is off the table. That agreement has to be abided by. We should not, take any money off the table where Israel has, because Israel has the right to defend itself. They're our close ally, and we want to make sure that they have the resources to defend themselves from attacks from anyone else. There was an MOU that was entered into. That MOU is non-negotiable.
Speaking of diplomatic channels, it seems the Palestinians want back in with America are willing possibly to amend its pay-for-slay policy, where it pays the salaries of terrorists who kill and maim Israeli citizens. It looks like they'll go about it a different way. Rather than paying based on the length of the prison sentence, they'll pay it based on need. Is that enough for you and for the Biden administration to bring the Palestinians back to the table, or are you going to require more from them?
I think there's going to be more. I think that's, we've got to make sure that there is more. There's steps that you take. I think that we've got to give the Biden administration the opportunity to get their people on board. We need the nominee for Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, to be confirmed by the Senate. We need to get the rest of the team in. We need to make sure that we get diplomats back in the State Department, which have been depleted greatly, so that we can know what's happening on the ground and have some back channel conversations also.
The Iran deal obviously looming large. You are for re-entering the Iranian nuclear accord without additional negotiations. And we just saw today Iran now enriching uranium up to 20%. They also seized the tanker of an ally in South Korea. One of the sparks of the Abraham Accord was the Gulf states' fear of Iranian influence and Iranian terrorism in the region. So why the rush to go headlong back into the Iranian nuclear accord without accounting for the nuclear missile program, without the ballistic missile program, without accounting for research and development, without accounting for the existing infrastructure? Why the rush?
Did we help ourselves or make ourselves safer by pulling out of the negotiations? No, we did not. We had more knowledge of what was going on the ground in regards to their nuclear program than we ever had previously, and by all aspects. And I went to Vienna and a number of other places to try to find out and talk to our allies that was part of the P5+1 to see if Iran, when we were in the agreement, were violating any of the rules that were contained within the agreement. And the answer came back no. Now, I'm not foolish either. We know that there were a number of things outside of, of the agreement that Iran was doing, whether you're looking at short range or long range ballistic missiles, whether you're looking at them continuing to sponsor terrorism in other places. So we have other avenues of which to make sure that we sanction and do other actions that are necessary to prevent that from happening. So my eyes are always on the other nefarious acts of the Iranian government and what they're doing in other places where they are endorsing and or supporting terrorist actions. And we've got to deal with that. But the agreement has one focus: make sure that they don't have access to a nuclear weapon, and for us to get as much information that of what's happening on the ground in Iran in regards to their trying to enrich plutonium so that they can have a nuclear weapon.
Speaking of the arms race, you are against the sale of arms to the United Arab Emirates, one of the proponents of the Abraham Accords. UAE trying to contain Iran. Why not give Israel's allies, let alone America's allies in the regions, the opportunity to contain Iran through the use of arms sales?
Well, because we agreed that we would always make sure that Israel had the qualitative advantage in regards to the sophistication of weapons.
Even though Israel's in favor of this arms sale?
Don't know what happens in one of the Arab states if there's something that goes wrong there. Then they have the weapons already, and then they would have the qualitative advantage or level playing field in regards to those weapons. So, I feel that we need to continue to honor that agreement that we had with Israel to make sure that they have the qualitative advantage in regards to the type of military equipment that's being sold. I don't have the certainty of knowing what's going to take place tomorrow. I've seen in other places where we've given individuals weapons, we sold weapons, different regime comes in and they're utilizing those weapons in an inhumane way, in a way that we had not intended, but they already have them. I know we don't have to worry about that with Israel, but as of right now, I do have concerns because of other policy considerations that some of the other states may have.
The incoming chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Gregory Meeks, tall challenge ahead, but based on your experiences, I know you're going to be up to it. Congratulations again, and best of luck moving forward. Thanks for taking the time to join us here.
All right, now, bye-bye.
Well, the changing of the guard there in Congress.